This is a reading of A Socialist Candidate for Dublin Corporation by James Connolly. It was first published in the Workers' Republic magazine on the 22nd of October, 1898. It was reprinted in Red Banner number 15, transcribed by Andrus O'Cosig, and marked up by Endo Callahan for the Marxist Internet Archive, where it's currently hosted, where I'm currently reading it now, and where you and anyone else can read this and many texts by many more Marxist authors. That's all for the introduction. On with the text. The Irish Socialist Republican Party have resolved to enter the electoral field with at least one candidate of their own in the forthcoming elections under the Local Government Act. We must, therefore, beg leave to avail ourselves of this opportunity to place before the Irish public our reasons for taking such a step, as well as to indicate wherein the policy presented by such a candidate will differ, if at all, from other parties in the field. The Socialist Republican Party, while keeping steadily before its members and sympathizers the necessity for broader and more sweeping changes than any municipality can effect, whilst ever emphasizing the need for a thorough reorganization of society itself on a scientific and just basis, has yet never lost sight of the clamant needs of the moment or ignored the immediately practical measures which might be enforced in the interests of the workers. On the contrary, it has ever claimed that the greatest and most irrefutable charge which can be brought to bear against our civic rulers in the past and present is that they, equally with the alien government of our country, have neglected to take such steps to safeguard human life from the greed of property owners as might have been taken even within the limits of our iniquitous property system. In accordance with this claim, we have consistently advocated many measures for sweetening the lot of the toilers and for humanizing the conditions under which the poor travail. Needless to say, the fact that every measure at all likely to operate in favor of the workers embodied the principle of public or collective ownership or control, or in other words, the spirit of socialism, has at all times acted as a stimulus to our propaganda. We know that the lot of the toilers and the spread of our principles are so inextricably linked that no power can ameliorate the former without bearing witness to the latter, and knowing it, we act accordingly. Our candidate will, therefore, take his stand unflinchingly upon the basic principles of socialism, and the fact of his stand thereon will be the pledge of his fidelity to the interests of the working class. We have already declared our attitude toward the Labour Electoral Association, lately formed by the trades bodies, and here's a footnote, after the Local Government Act 1898 gave the vote to a large section of the working class, trade unionists throughout the country formed associations to stand Labour candidates in the elections. Connolly welcomed this in the editorial of the August 27th Workers' Republic. Now, commenting, this article was entitled Labour Representation, and it has also been recorded and posted on this channel. End of my comment, and end of footnote, back to the main text. But it cannot be emphasized too often that we are in thorough accord with that movement, regarding it rather as the main body of that army of labor of which we are the pioneers rather than as a distinct party. We are in the van and, believing that in the stress of conflict with our mutual foes, the main body will be forced to our side. We see no necessity for moderating our uncompromising attitude to make the junction easier. It is inevitable, that is enough, provided there be honesty on both sides. On one question, and on one question only, can there be said to be a fundamental difference of opinion. The Labour Electoral Association declares it is not a political body. We are. We are Socialist Republicans seeking the application of Republican or Democratic principles to the industrial or social life of the community, and therefore resolutely determined to apply those principles to public life at every step of our advance towards the ideal. Our candidate, if elected, will, therefore, act in the corporation as an avowed enemy of royalty and of aristocratic rule in all its shapes and forms. he will lose no opportunity for demonstrating to the world at large the firm and unquenchable desire of Irishmen to attain their freedom, national as well as economic, and, whilst fighting and exposing sham nationalists and middle-class home rulers, he will recognize that it would be the reverse of a gain to replace them by the representatives of a West British faction. But at some future time, our candidate will, in propria persona, propound his views both to the electors and to the Labour Electoral Association, whose official endorsement we intend to seek. Meanwhile, as this candidature will now certainly be proceeded with at all hazards, we call on all members and sympathizers to rally up and help in the necessary work. The Socialist Republicans of Ireland step at last from the domain of theory into the realm of practice. The class war enters upon its final political expression. Comrades, to your post. And there's a footnote here. E.W. Stewart stood for the ISRP in Dublin's North Dock ward in January 1899 and received 448 votes, which was 12% of the total. And that's the end of the text. I could say, as a comment, that 12% of the total is certainly not bad compared to modern communist parties, and it's roughly in line with, what we'd see in the early 20th century, for instance, in the German Communist Party when they were in the German federal elections of the 20s and early 30s. Reading James Connolly's text, I found myself cheering and hoping for his win, but as we all know, it did not take off, at least not in 1899. Anyway, I don't have much to say. It's pretty cut and dry text here. Hope you have a good one, and do not forget ruthless criticism of all things.